Chapter 22, Opposites. To Blue's delight, Tumble became a regular at the Montgomery house as May turned into June. She still wouldn't admit to having a fate of her own, but Blue knew better. Even if Tumble's talent wasn't heroism, there would be something else. Sometimes it took a while for people to figure their fates out. It had taken his grandmother decades. In the meantime, Tumble had called a temporary halt to their attempts to turn him into a winner. She wanted to work out a truly foolproof plan this time. "It's no good if you die trying to beat fate, if you damaged an eye and a leg already." She set her jaw. "Next time, nobody's getting hurt." "Caution keeps away casualties," said Blue. "You're reading the book," Tumble whooped and punched his shoulder. "That's from chapter 1. Blue wasn't sure how much further he could stand to go into how to hero every day. Even though Maximal Star's advice seemed okay, his stories were a little too amazing. But he wasn't about to tell Tumble that. While they waited for the foolproof plan to come out of hiding, the two of them kept a close eye on the other Montgomerys, timed themselves running up and down the road, and tried to make the attic more livable. One morning, Tumble found a vent hidden under one of the boxes, and when they opened it, cool wind blew their hair out of their faces. "Air conditioning," said Tumble. Shifting yet another mountain of cardboard revealed a carving. It was on the wall opposite the window, and they had to crouch under the low roof to get a good look at it. It was smaller than the one over the front door of the house, and instead of two people shaking hands, it showed only Elmira Lafayette. Her face was harsh, with a sharp triangle for a nose. She was standing in a patch of reeds. The word "follow" was carved into them. 2 crescent moons had been cut into the wood, one above her head and the other beneath the reeds. Elmira was pointing at the bottom one. "That's weird," said Blue. "Why is it just her?" "Why are there 2 moons?" Tumble traced the carving with her finger. Hidden in the attic, the image felt like a clue. Just not one they needed. Some of the other Montgomerys had already guessed that following the red sickle moon was part of the trick, like chasing a rainbow to a pot of gold at the end. But Ma Myrtle swore there was more to it than that, so the battle for her approval was still on. Telescopes dotted the backyard now, courtesy of relatives who were hoping to spot the faintest hint of crimson on the moon. "Waning crescent moons for 3 more days," Blue told Tumble. He'd gotten very good at reading the lunar calendars scattered throughout the house. Then the new moon. Then waxing crescents for a few more days. And then no more crescent moons until the very end of the month. After Ma Myrtle's gone," said Tumble. Blue nodded. "You do think Ma Myrtle will tell someone how to get the new fate, don't you? Before she dies?" "I think so," Blue said. "She's not evil. She'll draw it out, I think, to make sure none of them ever forget about her." They would certainly never do that. As her death date approached, Ma Myrtle refused to slow down. There were late-night dancing contests, there were bake-offs instead of breakfasts. She had even woken the whole house up once for a midnight poetry slam. That afternoon, when she called all the relatives out onto the porch to entertain her, Tumble and Blue took advantage of the rare chance to sit at the kitchen table without a half a dozen Montgomerys surrounding them. They talked about ways to break Blue's fate, writing wild idea after wild idea down in the notebook. Tumble had started to carry in her emergency backpack. When Eve came in to get started on supper, she poured them each a glass of iced tea. "Do y'all need a snack?" she asked, pulling a leftover Coca-Cola ham out of the refrigerator. "You can help yourselves to anything. I'm sending the twins to the grocery store again tomorrow." The telephone rang. Eve set the ham on the counter and stepped over to pluck the phone off the wall. "Hello?" A second later, her free hand went to her hip. "Well?" she said. "Well, look who's decided to make time for the rest of us." Blue jumped up so quickly that his chair would have overturned if Tumble hadn't caught it. His dad. It had to be. He'd left so many messages, and his dad couldn't be that busy watching the races. He reached for the phone. Eve used her elbow to nudge him back an inch so that she wouldn't be talking into his hair. "He's here! Yes, he's here," she said. "Yes, well enough, all things considered. But Alan, the way you've been behaving—" "Dad!" Blue said loudly. "Hi, Dad! I'm here!" Eve shot him a quelling look that did nothing to quell him. He was an instant away from trying to make another grab for the phone when she sighed and handed it to him. "Dad!" said Blue. "Hey!" "Hey there, Skeeter!" It sounded almost like his dad was calling him from a swimming pool. Blue could hear splashing in the background and lots of voices. "Sorry I hadn't called in a few days. Just busy with things over here." "What things?" "Racing, all of it, you know." Blue didn't. Not really. But at least they were talking. "I got my cast off." "Hey!" said his dad. "I forgot that was coming. Way to go! How's the arm?" "Good. It's nice that it doesn't itch anymore." "Glad to hear it. You'll be back to your old self in no time." Blue knew he didn't mean anything by it, but still, his old self? His not good enough self? "About that," he said, "I think you'll be pretty surprised when you come to pick me up." 12 minutes, Blue thought. He ran to the sign every morning. He was getting faster, and usually Tumble kept him company. "I've made friends with the girl from next door." "Hi, Blue's dad!" Tumble shouted toward the phone. Blue grinned. "That's her. And the two of us, we're working on my fate." Eve had been getting a knife to cut up the Coca-Cola ham. She slammed the drawer with her backside and raised both eyebrows at Blue. His dad's voice was suddenly comfortable. "I never asked you to—" "No, it's good," said Blue. "By the time you get all the racing stuff figured out, I'll be—" "Is your granny listening in?" his dad demanded. She's cutting up a ham." "I told you not to mention the racing to her," he said, voice rising. "When I dropped you off, wasn't that one of the things I told you?" He had. Blue had forgotten. Sorry. I didn't mean to." "Let me talk to her." "No," said Blue. He grabbed the old phone's spiraling cord as if it could hold his dad on the line. "Not yet. I need to tell you—" "Let me talk to her." "What are you so mad about?" Blue crushed the phone's cord in his hand. His eyes stung, but he wouldn't let them do more than that. Not in front of Tumble and his grandmother. "Why does it matter if Granny Eve knows?"
"Blue,"
his dad said.
"I'm telling you I want to talk to your granny right now."
Blue breathed fast. He tried to understand why his dad was angry. It was such a little mistake. Granny Eve. His grandmother was chopping the ham with a fury that implied the pig had done something to offend her. Tumble was watching them both wide-eyed, her glass of tea halfway to her mouth. Blue swallowed to steady his voice. "Dad wants to talk to you." His grandmother plunged the knife into the ham and stomped over.
"You didn't do a thing wrong, Blue,"
she said in a crisp voice as she took the phone. "This is just an old pot that's finally decided to boil over." Then went into the phone. She said,
"Alan, after what happened last time, how could you?"
Her lips narrowed.
"Well, maybe you don't have to explain yourself to me, and you obviously won't explain yourself to your own boy."
She drew in a long breath that pulled her shoulders back and made her chest swell.
"So, why don't you try talking to your own darn self?"
She slapped the phone back onto the wall. Blue took a step back. Eve was glaring at the phone as if daring it to ring. Tumble set her glass on the table.
"Hey!"
she said in a strained voice.
"Hey, Blue, let's go upstairs. I've just had the best idea about that carving up there."
Tumble hadn't had any kind of an idea about the carving, but she would have made something up when they reached the attic. She talked as fast as she could all the way upstairs, hoping to distract Blue from whatever had gone wrong. She had been able to hear Blue's dad shouting at him, though not well enough to understand what he was saying. And his grandmother, Tumble had never seen her that mad, not even when the relatives spilled green paint down the grand staircase. not even when someone threw a croquet mallet through one of the windows. So Tumble was rambling on and on about Maximal Star, and she was thinking about how unfair it was that someone like Maximal couldn't be born with a powerful gift, and someone like Blue's dad could, when the answer they'd been looking for all the time hit her like a croquet mallet to the head. She actually tripped. If Blue hadn't grabbed the back of her t-shirt, she would have smashed her face into the attic steps. "Are you okay?" He sounded deflated to Tumble, and defeated. Defeat was the most dangerous emotion during crisis, and Tumble didn't have time for it. She shook him off and dashed up the last few stairs, excitement making her floaty. She spun around when she reached the top and looked down at him with her arms spread wide. "Blue, I've got it! Opposites!" "What?" "The Montgomery Fates. Some of them are opposites." He blinked up at her. "Your dad wins," Tumble said impatiently. "You lose." "I know." Blue's shoulders slumped. "Blue!" She flapped her arms at him. "Don't you get it? What would happen if you and your dad were a team?" Chapter 23. Flat as a Flitter. Opposite Fates. It was an idea so perfect, Blue couldn't believe he'd never thought of it before. What would happen if a winner and a loser worked together? Unfortunately, with his dad out of reach, Tumble and Blue needed a different pair of opposites to test their theory. That was why they volunteered to help the twins buy groceries the next afternoon. On the way into town, they shared the back seat of the twins' car with Howard, who'd come along after swearing he would commit murder if he had to pretend to get along with the other Montgomerys for one more minute. "Have you been pretending?" Ida asked as Jenna turned the car onto Main Street. "Wow, you're really bad at it." "They're a bunch of backstabbing buzzards. Do you know someone's drawn a countdown on the shower curtain in one of the second-floor bathrooms? I tried to wash it off, but it's a permanent marker." "Another moon calendar?" asked Blue. "No." Howard spat the word. "It's a countdown when Ma Myrtle dies. I'm mad at her, but that's disgusting. What if she sees it? What if Granny Eve sees it?" He kicked the back of Ida's seat. "Howard!" "Most of these people don't even know her or us. They've never bothered to talk to us before in their lives. Their grandparents ran away from Murky Branch generations ago." "And they're trashing our house," Jenna said grimly. Ida sighed. "What do you two want to do about it? We're already spying on them and plotting against them. Are we supposed to poison the groceries too?" She was joking, but Howard and Jenna didn't laugh. "I'm pretty sure I'm not allowed to poison anyone," Tumble said. "It's just one summer. Maybe only a few more days. We can do this, and then they'll be gone." "Tumble and I have got an idea," said Blue. "One that will make them be gone faster." He bumped Tumble's elbow. "That's right," she said. "It's a perfect plan. You're going to love it." "It'll change your lives," Blue added. Jenna glanced at them in the rearview mirror. "Oh yeah? Well, if it's life-changing, save it for lunch. I'm starving." A moment later, she drove the car into the parking lot of Flat's restaurant. "Wait!" Howard's eyes widened. "We're supposed to be going to the grocery store." "It's 1 o'clock. I don't want to drive all that way on an empty stomach." She parked them in beside a truck covered in mud and Gone Fishing bumper stickers. Howard sank so low into his seat he looked like he was melting into the upholstery. Ida turned around in her seat. "Howard," she said soothingly, "Millie Flat's a nice girl. She won't bite." "Just try not to embarrass us all this time, Romeo," said Jenna. Flat's restaurant smelled like pancakes and french fries. It had a checkered tile floor that squeaked against the soles of Blue's flip-flops, and oldies music was playing on the radio next to the cash register. Millie Flat was on duty, and by the time Howard slunk into the restaurant, she had already seated the rest of them at a corner booth and passed out giant laminated menus. The bell over the door tinkled as he came in, and Howard flinched like it was a siren. "Howard!" Goat's niece practically sang his name. She snatched the menu right out of Blue's hands and ran toward Howard, holding it out eagerly. But as soon as she reached him, red blotches spread across her cheeks and she stopped talking. Which was too bad because Howard wasn't talking either. "That's so sweet," Ida whispered. "Ugh, but also annoying," said Jenna. "We'll probably never get to order at this rate." When Howard and Millie finally made it back to the table, Tumble was laughing into her hand and Blue was pretending to stare very hard at his menu. Howard squeezed into the booth beside them. His forehead was sweating. "Are you okay?" Blue asked after Millie took their orders and left. "What's this great idea of yours?" Howard said in a croaky voice. "It sounded important. Really important." "You're adorable," Jenna cooed. The look Howard shot at her would have withered grass. "Our idea actually is really important," Tumble said. "We know how to break your curse, Ida." Blue's cousins stared at her. "Tell them, Blue." He took a deep breath. "Have you ever noticed," he said, "that a lot of the Montgomery's fates are opposites?" By the time Millie brought their lunches, Ida was as green as a swamp cake. "Flat as a flitter and twice as tasty," Millie announced, sliding a stack of the famous pancakes toward Blue. Tumble wondered how much food coloring it took to turn batter that particular shade of lime. "What's a flitter?" she asked as Millie passed her a bottle of dressing for her salad. A flat thing?" Millie shrugged. "My mama says it." She seemed to have recovered her voice, but when she gave Howard his plate, she spilled a few baked beans down the front of her apron. She squeaked in horror and disappeared so quickly that they didn't even have time to ask for a refill on their drinks. Jenna leaned so far across the table that the tip of her long braid trailed through the gravy on top of her mashed potatoes. "Listen," she muttered to Blue. "I know you're upset about your dad and being left here and being a long way from home," Ida said, her voice weak. "But that's no reason to suggest gerbils are dangerous. They eat their wounded. Everyone knows that." Howard was looking thoughtfully down at his beans. "It could work." "No, it couldn't." "It makes sense," Howard insisted. "We should have thought of it years ago." Ida shook her head. "I don't even want to talk about it. I don't want the gerbils to know." "The gerbellion are at home in their habitats right now, Ida," Jenna said, annoyance creeping into her voice. "They're not going to get you." Ida pulled her knees to her chest as if she thought the gerbils might be scurrying around Flat's restaurant. "They want to, though," she said darkly. "They always want to. When you're not in the room, they line up along the glass and press their awful little paws against it, and they stare and stare and stare." "Oh, they do not," said Jenna. "The whole reason I have gerbils is that they're not aggressive, and I've been training these for ages. They haven't bitten you once." Tumble perched her fork on the edge of her plate. "That's perfect," she said. "Don't you see? We have friendly, trained gerbils who love you, Jenna." "And we have Ida, who the friendly, trained gerbils hate," Blue added. "So if we put the two of you together, and then we make the gerbils choose whether to obey Jenna or to snack on Ida, someone has to lose," Tumble and Blue said together. The twins exchanged identical, doubtful frowns. Tumble decided it was time to sweeten the deal. "And you've got to think about Mom Myrtle. She wants someone to impress her, right? To show they're brave enough and smart enough to make it into the swamp? Well, this would be really brave of you, Ida, and breaking your curse would prove you're smarter than any Montgomery ever. Blue and I won't take any credit. We'll say the idea was all yours." Howard was nodding now. "Who cares about the stupid alligator?" he said. "If we could break our curses, we might not need to go into the swamp at all." "What about Granny Eve?" Jenna said. "What if breaking one curse broke all of them?" Howard countered. The words zinged through the air. Tumble and Blue had already thought it. even though they were trying not to be too hopeful. Tumble nodded at Howard.
Either way, she said, you won't lose.
Blue cleared his throat.
That's right, he said. Either the gerbils will have to be nice to you, Ida, or they'll have to disobey Jenna. Someone's fate is going to change, and that's something even Ma Myrtle can't ignore.
I'll think about it, Ida whispered. Her voice was so quiet that they almost couldn't hear it over the sound of the radio. Howard snorted.
What's there to think about?
Eat your beans, Jenna snapped, sitting back in the booth and patting Ida on the arm.
She promised to think about it.
Then she pointed a spoon at Tumble and Blue.
I'm in if Ida is, she said. But if my gerbils get hurt, I'll make sure every animal in the Okefenokee knows I don't like you.